And we are waiting on Senator Miguel Diaz de la Portilla to arrive, and so we will take item 4B first. Madam Manager, do you have anything on that item, or?
I'd like to introduce our auditors that they're going to go over the audit report for the fiscal year ended September 2013. Pablo, if you would just tell them who you are and where you're from, and they'll and give us the report, please.
Thank you. My name is Pablo Llerena with Ms. Andres Munoz. We're from GLC & Company, and we're here to present the financial statement for the year 2013. As you can see on page 1 is our responsibility. We were engaged to audit financial statements on the general accepted auditing standards and government auditing standards issued by the Comptroller General of the United States. Our responsibility is to express an opinion based on our audit. The responsibility for the financial statement, for the numbers, the disclosures remain with the management of the village. As a result of the audit, we're happy to report that we issue an unmodified or clean opinion on the financial statement of the city. Like I mentioned before, we have to issue a report on the government auditing standards. And that report discloses certain findings in internal control and compliance, and these findings are located on pages 69 through 75 of the financial statements. One of the things that I would like to mention is in prior years there were a lot of findings. This year basically is 3 findings left. I think is they've been doing a pretty good job of cleaning up the things that were from the past, and I'm pretty sure next year most of the findings will be gone. So next year during the audit we'll always go back and look at the prior year findings to make sure there's either more clear. Hopefully there's no more issues, but next year when we present it, we'll discussing the 3 findings that are left. Well, one of the things that I want to discuss is the fund balance in the general fund. If you look at 2012, the total fund balance is $537,078, and in 2013 it's $532,427. It's only a difference of $4,551. Basically, this year was a break-even year. However, if you look at the distribution, what is unassigned or basically available, it went down from 478 to 4,007, and the main reason is the prepayment of insurance that was paid ahead of time. So it is basically a technicality or the way the accounting is recorded. So as a year, it was a break-even year. As part of the audit, we do a financial condition assessment that is required by the Auditor General of the State of Florida. The village had not met any of the conditions on Section 218.503, which is we are not in a state of financial emergency. However, the result of the financial condition assessment has been unfavorable, and has been like that for the past 2 or 3 years. You were provided with this booklet, which is basically is a report to the members of elected officials, of those in charge with governance. Those are requirements of the professional and cover certain things. Our responsibility in the professional standards, basically we're responsible, like I mentioned before, to issue a financial statement or give an opinion. The report, the notes and everything is the responsibility of management under your supervision. There were no changes in accounting practice from the year 2012 to the year 2013. There were no unusual transactions or significant transactions during the year, which there were basically a consensus. There was no alternative treatment to any of the accounting policies. Management estimates are the summaries on the last page of this report. During the year, there were not uncorrected misstatements. All misstatements were corrected during the audit. We're happy to report there was no disagreement with management. As far as we're concerned, management didn't consult anything with other accountants. There was no significant issue disclosed with management. There was one finding of internal control and two findings on compliance, which are disclosed, as I said before, on pages 79 and 69 through 75. And basically, at the present time, if anybody have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer.
Okay, any questions from the commission?
Yeah. Why were we unfavorable? What was wrong?
But basically, is during the past 3 or 4 years, your fund balance has been decreasing. As you decrease your fund balance, your cash goes down. That's a primary thing that drives the financial condition assessment. The way the financial condition assessment works, basically, the Auditor General is therefore provide this report goes to the Auditor General, and they basically summarize all the information for the different cities. And what they do is put the cities based on population and on the population of the size of the tax basis. And based on the number, your city is compared to other cities either based on population of the tax basis, and when you compare if the other are above your numbers, you become unfavorable. And it's a trend that goes between 3 and 5 years. So if you continue to improve, you'll be getting out of the unfavorable position.
What's the improvement? Having more money in the fund?
More money in the bank, better fund balance, less liabilities. I don't know if you're aware, but you look at the past 3 or 4 years, your fund balance has decreased, been decreasing. This year, basically, it started to be stable. So as you move forward, you keep it stable, and you increase your fund balance, you'll be getting out of the unfavorable situation.
Are there any other significant issues that, other than the issue that you just cited?
No, is the findings, which is pretty much should be resolved, I hope, for next year. And prior years, there were a lot of findings, is we're only down to 3.
Do you want to go over the findings?
One of the findings is the cash received, that basically it was taking more than a week. During the test, we do testing of the money, the time it takes from the money gets to the city, the village, and it gets deposited in the bank. During our testing, we noted that it was 2 deposits that took like more than a week to get deposited in the bank. So that's one of the findings, and the finance director basically is going to correct the situation, and says you have a new finance director, that should be corrected for next year. There was an issue related to the subcontractors, that there was no formal agreement for the performing the permanent inspection, and that's basically is they're working on the agreement. I think the attorneys is working on that. And the last one, Let me see, what's the other one? 12, 13, 2901. Oh, the other one dealing with the journal entries that basically there was not a file with provide the support for the journal entries, and now everything is, they're putting everything in a binder, and there shouldn't be a problem going forward for next year. Those are basically the three findings that are still pending. Everything else has been clear.
Sir, I have a question.
Commissioner Ross?
One of the prior findings had to do with not having appropriate closing procedures, year-end closing procedures.
As the closing, that was taken care of during the years. I think at the end of the year it was a lot easier than the prior years.
So that's been corrected to your
Yep.
satisfaction?
Right.
Commissioner Watts?
Yes. The second item that you mentioned about subcontractors, I wonder if you could explain that to me?
Yeah, basically there was no contract for the, this is coming from prior years. The subcontractor, they subcontracted the permanent inspection, but there's no formal agreement with the subcontractor as to, for the one they're doing the inspection. So right now they're working on an agreement with the subcontractor. The reason is might be related to IRS. There have been cities where the IRS had come in and make a determination that the subcontractor are actually employees of the city because there was nothing, no agreement as to otherwise. And the city had to pay the social security taxes and the withholding for the years those people were working as subcontractors. That's what's important, that, to have an agreement.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments?
Yeah, Dave, one more, sorry.
Commissioner
Sorry to
Jonas?
come back to this, but what is the recommended fund balance for our size and budget?
Well, the Gordon Financial Association, which is basically is on top of all the cities and is involved, they recommend to having around 17% of the following year's expenditures actually fund balance available. That is what the recommendation is. More than that is better, but that's basically typically 3 months of operations.
Okay.
Commissioner Anderson?
Yeah, I see, previously we had problems on doing some reports late that's turned into the state.
No, that's no longer the case.
That's no longer the case.
That was clear last year. We didn't know that any report that was filed late.
No, I know, because if you look at the last few years, like you pointed out,
Right.
it's almost like a mini book in the back with the
Mhm.
problems. That
So
we had.
most of those things are hopefully gone.
Yeah, there's a big difference.
All right, any other comments?
I just want to make mention, and it's not on the audit section of the CAFR, the big report, but there's a schedule where we talk about the millage rate on page 13. And where all of the other schedules go back 10 years, which seems like a logical breaking point. I'm not sure that we need to go back 10 years, maybe 5 years. But this particular schedule on page 13 goes back to 1996. And, yeah, and I'm not sure that it's accurate, the figures that are shown for 1996, so we should just check it out and not repeat it if it's not accurate. And certainly, I don't think we need to go back to 1996 for the historic reference.
Is it customary to go back that far?
No, really, and this is, if you look at our opinion, this is not covered in our opinion. It is part of this, is basically, is provided by management, because when you send this to this Government Financial Free Association to get a certificate of achievement, they require you to present certain financial information. Typically, you just go back maybe 5 years. In the back is required to go back a lot of the schedules for 10 years. You look at information in the back, like the statistical section, a lot of the things there are around 10 years.
But so what you're pointing to is that the millage rate back to 96 and perhaps 97, 98, 99 is inaccurate?
I don't know, I couldn't,
I
the
mean, it's-
county doesn't even have those records available online going back to 1996. It just seems to me.
It seems shocking that it's.
It just seems to me very surprising that we would go from 1.8 to 8.7 in 1 year.
Staff, is there any explanation?
We don't have an answer to that.
Okay. Yeah, it does seem strange that.
But for next year, we're going to limit it to the 10 years. We're going to chop off those beginning
Sure.
years.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, there's no issue with that.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Any other comments? Thank you, sir.
No, thank you.
Okay. All right. Any additions, deletions, or withdrawals?
Not from staff.
Anything from the commission?
I have one I'd like to put on the agenda. Evidently, Parks and Parkways having a major problem.
I'm sorry, what?
Just, I'd like to hear it, but remember it's a special meeting, so it's a policy we don't tend to put on anything advertised for a special meeting.
Well, it's not relative to this particular meeting, but it's something I think it can easily go through. Let me say what it is, and then we can make a decision. Parks and Parkway has been having problems of having a quorum, and one of the members that used to be on there, his name is Lynn Fisher, she would like to be put back on.
Okay. Can we put that on the next agenda? I mean, can we act? We can't act upon it now.
The law provides that you can act upon it, not everything that is done at a meeting needs to be at the meeting. We've had a general policy not to do it unless it was an emergent circumstance, but that's a minor issue that you can decide whether you want to discuss it tonight or not.
Okay. Does anyone have an issue with putting her back on the board?
Mayor,
Yes.
This is the first I've heard that they were having a quorum issue, so I don't have any names or anything to provide for you.
All right. Why don't we do this?
Okay, we'll put
Commissioner
it-
Anderson, if it's okay, let's put it on for the next meeting. Okay. That way staff can get up to speed. Okay. Anything else? All right. Let's move on to public comments. If you could come up and state your name and address for the record.
Milton Hunter, 646 Northeast 114th Street. Greetings, everybody. Commissioners, Mayor. I'll be brief. Couple things, and I had spoken to a couple of you previously about the restoration project for Village Hall and the Annex Building. And my concern, and I think pretty much it's no longer a concern, but I thought I'd mention it just to have on record, is a fear of potentially shortchanging the restoration of the log cabin in lieu to have more money set aside for the annex building. But I think my concerns have been pretty much cleared up at this point that that isn't going to happen, and that hopefully we can do both and do it properly. In reference to the project moving forward, I think that some residents here, and possibly commissioners as well, haven't fully grasped the understanding of the new government that we elected to go to with the village manager, and we micromanage things to such a point that we've lost opportunities or delayed things in such a manner that was not productive. And the 2 points I'll make is the grant that we squandered for the Learning Center and the time it took to put up a new sign. Now, David, I know you weren't here during that point, but I believe that was about a decade's worth of back and forth to try to find a design that people either were agreeing with, amenable to, which I think was completely unnecessary. And even though I think it's a beautiful sign, I'm sure that there are some residents that still would think it's not. So you're never going to get a consensus by delay, and the delay has created a lot of, I think, unnecessary issues within a community. The Learning Center, from what I understand, we spent money from the grants, never fulfilled the grant because of inability to come to a consensus or make a decision. And I think we were fortunate that we didn't have to pay back the $225,000 that was spent from the grant for the drawings, which I looked at in a very cursory glance with our village manager, because I never saw them before. And Bob, I know you had mentioned that they were there. And I think it's an acceptable design. I'm sure it needs to be tinkered or modified a bit, but I would love to see that money and some time that was spent towards that end utilized, so that we can move forward with this within the time allotted and not have a situation where we get up against the 11th hour, which we seem to do with more frequency than I think we should. I don't know that every move that we undertake as a village needs to be micromanaged by ad hoc committees ad nauseum. We've chosen a style of management. I think we should allow our managers to do their job. Input is great, but the delays and the speed or lack thereof of what we've moved forward with some of these projects, I think we need to try to embrace and improve so that we don't miss opportunities or we don't delay opportunities for longer than necessary. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you, Mill. Any other public comment?
Good evening, Tracy Trutman, 791 Northeast 116th. I want to talk on a few items today. First of all, I want to talk about the public service coordinator position that's listed, and I also spent quite a bit of time chewing off Heidi's ear on that particular piece, probably more time than she wanted to spend with me on it. I've been very vocal about not having to spend expenditures for an assistant manager when I did feel that position was necessary, and I've spoken to all the commissioners about that. I do agree that the public service coordinator, if it is as written, where its focus is on the residents and providing the residents quick response to everyday issues, it will help our government function a lot smoother. One of the things that happens in our communities, there's a lot of conversation that goes on with miscommunication and misfacts. This would help alleviate that. I support that role. I do not support having a hierarchical position in which we have somebody in charge of somebody in charge of somebody and a staff that's very small. That doesn't mean there can't be oversight or some other type of facilitation for the residents as it is originally written. And once again, that seems as though I'm micromanaging the manager in saying that, so if I'm wrong, please go ahead and ignore me. Next is I want to make a quick comment on the ad hoc committee regarding the wonderful $1 million grant. I also have a concern with having boards, in the sense that if professional boards tend to work a little bit better than people that are just assigned, but it becomes very much an issue of not being able to move forward fast enough. So whenever you're managing grants, which I do have a lot of experience with, you have to move quickly, efficiently, and at the same time there has to be some oversight. But I do believe that we have to be careful that we're not micromanaging. That's another piece on this. And we need to move forward, and one other thing I would like to see is that the outside of the building be very much in keeping with the style or some sort of style of the village log cabin, because I think the two need to work hand in hand. And one of the pieces I'd like to see our police stay in that building and not move to the Public Works building. Regarding the Public Works building, whether that can be used for part storage, I would also like to see, and I've mentioned this to some of you, it become a gym for the residents and the residents only for 18 or older. If that space is even possible, it may or may not be, because that would give us something unique in our village that we haven't had for the community. Finally, one last piece, discussion of road and stormwater assessment. I'm going to put another plug in for the water pipes of the village. I don't know what the legalities are regarding that, but if this is going to end up being an enormous issue. Water pressure, water quality, our pipes, these are huge issues in the village. So whatever assessment you do, I'd like to see that be a part of the roads piece, because I think it's actually in some ways more critical than that. And I think that's all I had. Thank you all very much.
All right, thank you, Tracy. Any other public comments? All right, we'll close the public.
Chuck Rossman, 1166 Griffin Boulevard. I just want, in light of what the auditor said, that make sure that we maintain at a minimum the trim of 9.7. Clearly, we have to make sure that we have sufficient funds to build up our reserves. Plus, I had a few projects that I thought, and they're not that significant, but I didn't see them in the budget, so therefore, like the audio and visual system here that I bring up every year. So that type of thing. So, which will be brought up at a budget workshop in any case. Thank you.
Thank you, Chuck. Anyone else? All right, we'll close the public comment period. And we will go back to presentations. We are honored to have Senator Miguel Diaz de la Portilla here. Miguel, Dave actually is going to say a few words about Miguel, but I'd like to just briefly comment that Senator Diaz de la Portilla was absolutely instrumental in getting us $1 million from the state. Not to milk this whole $1 million grant, but it's a big deal, and he worked very hard for us. Biscayne Park is not within his territory, but he's really gone to bat for the village, and he's a friend of the village. And I can honestly say, without his support and his voice in Tallahassee, there is absolutely no way that we would have ever received this money. So we owe a debt of gratitude to the senator. And Dave, I know you have some words as well.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Now, was that for me or for the Senate? Okay. First of all, I want to say good evening to Mayor and the Council and guests and residents of the village. My name is David Caserta, and I am the Government Relations Specialist for the city up in for the village up in Tallahassee. And before you, you should have either in an email or on the desk before you a report, a post-session report that we've completed. That report will include all of our current issues, with the status of our current issues, as well as bills that have passed and have failed that we all worked on, and that we worked very closely with our partners, other cities that have representation, as well as the Florida League of Cities. But I'm very excited to be here today for the following reasons. I've had the wonderful opportunity of representing this great village and the councils before you as well for over 16 years now. And during those times, we had an active government relations effort, and each year we brought back something wonderful to the village. I mean, I'm seeing the things today as I pulled up, the lobby, the renovations to this building, the children's swings and sets outside, and the field renovation. It's all wonderful, and there's much more where that came from. But what I wanted to let you know is that in the last couple of years, for whatever reason, the council had decided, the previous councils decided not to pursue a heavy government relations effort in Tallahassee. And even with that, I told former managers and your new manager, Heidi, that I will continue to help and do what I can. And in those times, we did preserve some funding issues that were threatened. We did get some odds and ends done for the village, but more importantly, what you all have done, the decision that you made was absolutely incredible to continue and move forward with a strong government relations effort this year. And as a result of what you all have done, the residents of this great city will benefit greatly. And I will tell you that this has basically been one of the best years that the village has ever had in Tallahassee. And you should be very proud of that. You should be very proud of your council. I want to thank a few people first. I want to thank your village manager for all the work that you've done. I mean, as you know, the amount of information and requests that come in to satisfy the needs of staff, legislators, the governor's office, and everything is tremendous. And your office and yourself have been incredible. I want to personally thank the council for moving forward, but more specifically, I want to thank the mayor, and I want to thank Councilwoman Ross and the manager for coming up to Tallahassee and speaking with a lot of the key legislators who this issue was on the top of their agenda, and really gave them a clear outlook and description of what really is needed here in the village. So I want to thank you all for for coming up. But I also want to let you know that without the support of our leaders, our elected officials, folks that we put into office to do the right thing, none of this happens. It's them, their staff. Those are the folks are the last ones to say yay or nay. And last week, as you know, or a couple weeks ago, you had one of our House members, Daphne Campbell, come up and talk to you about her work, and she did a wonderful job in the House. The House obviously had to support this effort as well and move it forward. But it takes two to tango. And the Senate, who is a very important house in the legislature, really, I'd have to say, you probably ruled the roost this year. I mean, the Senate really dictated where things went, and without their support, things will not happen. We have, and we are fortunate to have, an individual, Senator Diaz de la Portilla, Miguel Diaz de la Miguel Diaz de la Portilla. He with us today, and he is not only a friend of mine, but he has been a friend of all of ours, and before we even knew it. He served, as you all know, for many, many years as one of the most effective commissioners in Miami-Dade County. From there, he moved to replace his brother in Tallahassee as a state senator. And his family, he comes from a family that has been involved in the political process and has had a major impact on this community for many years. His brother who served in the House and also served in the school board, his other brother who served in the state Senate, and then once again the senator who now is the current standing senator in the state of Florida. When it came down to it, he stepped up to the plate, and when our funding issue was of concern in the Senate, he stepped up and said to the speaker and said to the leader, this is important to me. And they kept looking at him going, why is this important to you? You represent South Miami and Coral Gables. He goes, everything that happens in this state, that's our job. Those who are in need, that's who we need to help. So this is important to me. And that money stuck, and we passed the budget. And then when the governor came to him and personally called him and he spoke to the governor said, what's your priorities? We were one of his priorities. I mean, that's unheard of. And the governor even says, you have a very big district, Biscayne Park. And he says, no, I just have a very good heart, and I need to help people. And so one thing led to another, it passed. And I'll tell you, if you ask the senator, he will tell you. He is probably one of the more effective leaders than his siblings. And for our purposes today, he is. Ladies and gentlemen, Senator Diaz de la Portilla.
Well, thank you for that, Dave. Mayor, members of the village council, staff, and members of the audience. I'm Miguel Diaz de la Portilla. It's a pleasure to be here with you tonight, and it's great to be here under these great circumstances, which is celebrating obtaining the much-needed $1 million for the only working historic log cabin in the state of Florida. Built in 1933 under the Roosevelt administration, and it had been in decay for many years, despite the best efforts of the village. You're talking about a village that, and as you all know, does not have a large commercial base. $1 million to fix this building and to have an annex for your administration to be able to serve you, the citizens, that's a lot of money. And it wasn't that easy. Right now it seems like it was. I know you've had 2 consecutive meetings where we've talked about this, but really this effort started, at least on my part, about 3 years ago. And it was actually, and we put it in the budget a couple of years ago, it went through the process and the governor vetoed it. This time around, we put it in the budget and we stayed with the governor and on the governor to make sure he didn't veto it. And a big part of why it stayed in and the money made its way to Biscayne Park was because of the work your lobbyists did and the work your elected officials did, your mayor, who was on the phone with me. And this is a behind the scenes and how things happen that a lot of people don't get a glimpse of. But it took a lot of advocacy because the governor was asking, well, how many jobs is this going to create and long-term jobs and so forth. And quite frankly, it took some clever lawyering on the part of your mayor here and myself as well to be able to address the issues that were raised from the governor's office, because there are 450-some cities competing for these very dollars, 67 counties, and a bunch of other agencies and organizations. And and the big thing in the budget was, well, job creation. That's a big issue for the governor. It's a big issue for us in the state. But we were able to make the case that getting this historic log cabin to be refurbished and to have working utilities and to be up to par was an important component of the quality of life in this village. Being able to have that annex was an important component of quality of life in the village, and we think all that contributes to the general welfare of our state. And we were able to make that argument, convince the governor to keep it in the budget, and the money made its way down here. It was a team effort. We all worked very hard on it. Many of your council members went up there. Your manager went up to Tallahassee and provided us with the information, the ammunition that we needed to make the argument and to fight off all those other cities that wanted your $1 million. But we were able to bring it down here, and I think there are many, many, many good things to come for this village, for this community, and it all starts with great leadership from your elected officials, but understanding also how to work in a team effort with your state elected officials and being effective advocates for the people, for you, the people of the community. So again, I'm honored and humbled to be here. I think the $1 million are going to a worthy cause, for a worthy city, for a worthy citizenry. And so, I really don't have anything else to say other than, best of luck, and I'll be there for the next 4 years to help out in whatever the city needs and to bring dollars down to our communities here in Miami-Dade County. Thank you.
Senator, thank you very much for making the trip up, and I think we can take maybe a recess so that we can mingle a little bit.
Dave,
So
Dave,
5-minute recess?
Dave, before we do,
Yes.
I just want to thank the senator.
And brings it out for us, so thank you, Maria.
Opens up the log cabin on a Saturday so we could get some information.
There you go.
So we could get it back up to them. Oh, it's Sunday, I'm sorry.
I saw her, I can attest to that.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Yes. Okay, I promise no more celebrations about the $1 million. We're going to go back to public comment just because we took items out of order, and so we're going to reopen that just to allow some other residents that showed up. So we will open public comments. State your name and address for the record.
Barbara Kuehl, 111th Street. I'll be brief. I can't even think of what was on the agenda. The one thing I wanted to comment on was the job position. Yesterday at Park and Parkways, we spoke with the manager, and the Park and Parkways Board expressed their hope that we could get more support with Public Works, so that when the money, the $40,000 that's been allocated for the medians, we will be able to have somebody that will be able to work with this and use it in a good way. And she seemed to agree with that. I'm not, I can't put words in her mouth. I don't know what's going to happen, but I would support that. I feel that Code and Public Works both have a need. And to me, if the situation in the office eventually needs another person, I think we can evaluate it maybe after sanitation changes over. And I also support the proposed tax, the trim at the 9.3, or 9.7, because I think especially if you're going to do an assessment, then it's another burden for residents rather than raising it. And I'd just like to thank all of the commissioners, the manager, the staff, everybody this week. Everybody has been phone calling, meeting, going out of their way to accommodate people that have been interested in these issues, and everybody's been very responsive. So thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. All right, anyone else? That's it? Okay, we'll close the public comment period and move on to resolutions. Item 7A, Resolution 2014-46.
The resolution of the Village Commission of the Village of Biscayne Park, Florida, establishing a tentative millage rate of 9.7 for fiscal year 2014-2015, establishing the current year rollback rate to be 8.8456, and establishing the first and second public budget hearings as required by law. Directing the village clerk and finance director to file said resolution with the property appraiser of Miami-Dade County pursuant to the requirements of Florida statutes and the rules and regulations of the Department of Revenue of the state of Florida, establishing the time and location of the first and second public hearings, providing for an effective date. And if I may, Mayor, so under Section 200.065 of the Florida statutes, this is what is commonly called setting the trim, your tentative millage. And there's 4 things that you need to do tonight. One is to recognize the rollback, what the rollback rate actually is, which is 8.8456. The second is to establish the tentative millage rate, which is being recommended at 9.7, remembering that whatever you establish tonight, you can easily go lower than that. You cannot easily go higher. It would require really first-class mailing of a change, and it would be expensive. We also have to recognize and articulate what the actual millage rate changes between this year coming forward and last year, which is 0%, because right now our millage rate is 9.7. And third, fourth, we need to announce the public hearing dates, which are need to be so they don't conflict with the county and the school board and some other meetings. So they are proposed tonight and asking for your approval of September 11th, 2014 at 6:30 p.m. here at the Ed Burke Center, and September 23rd, 2014, 6:30 p.m. here at the Ed Burke Center.
Okay, thank you. Does the manager have?
I just wanted to add on that, as the attorney said, the proposed millage rate is 9.7. Every 0.1 mil represents $14,449. We've presented a budget that we feel is balanced and efficient. We've looked at also correcting where some items were originally allocated and cleaned up the budget also to make it a more user-friendly budget as we go through the years. In addition to the 2 public hearings, I want to announce as well that there will be 2 public budget workshops where staff and the commission will sit down and go through the items, through the line items, look at the detail. Those will take place on Wednesday, August 13th, and Wednesday, August 20th. We break it up into 2 meetings, and each meeting will start at 6:30 p.m. We have our finance director here if you have any questions specific to the budget, and I'm also here for questions.
Okay, thank you. All right, comments from the commission?
First, I have a question.
Sure.
Okay, I'm sorry, but I don't have my calendar with me. September 11th and September 23rd, what days of the week are they?
Thursday the 11th and Tuesday the 23rd.
Okay, fine.
Both at 6:30 p.m.
Commissioner Ross?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve Resolution 2014-46 at the recommended millage rate of 9.7.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Ross, second by Commissioner Anderson. Any other discussion?
Yep. Heidi, I'm sure that the budget you put forward is efficient, but I don't think in the large scheme of it, it's balanced in the sense that we are very far behind in terms of what we as a municipality should be doing for ourselves. There are large items and small items that we don't do, we don't even try, because we don't have the money. And I don't see why we would ever tax ourselves at this point at less than 10 mils, because even that won't get us where we're going. So my suggestion is that we not agree to 9.7, but rather that we go to 10, partly because we need the money, and partly because if in the course of discussions we think we made a mistake, we can't then go up, or at least as John says, not easily go up. So I really would rather see us taxing at 10. I don't think that's going to do a great deal for our problems, but at least it's symbolic and it gets us a few more dollars. Sounded like maybe about 135, something like that. Didn't you say about 45?
No,
So about
it's 14
$42,000 is all the difference would be.
42,000.
For the whole 0.3 mils, or
Yes, because
or
it's
per 0.1
14,000.
mil?
It's about 14,000 per tenth of a mil.
Per tenth?
Right.
Oh, okay. I'll take it. I still think we should tax at 10 instead of 9.7.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay. I mean, I think my comment is that the goal is obviously to eventually long-term decrease the millage rate, and I think we're not ready for that yet, so I'm comfortable leaving it at 9.7, working with the budget to find funds in there to work on necessary improvements with the goal towards eventually lowering the millage, but I'm definitely not in favor of increasing the millage rate to 10. So we have a...
Just make a brief comment?
Sure.
I just wanted to compliment the administration and staff for putting together the proposed budget. I don't know if it's that I'm reading as time goes by, it becomes easier for me to read, or they actually are clearer, but there's a lot of explanations and a lot of detail that, you know, it flows easily. So I appreciate the work you put into it.
Thank you. I just want to point out that was this is a result of the new accounting software. That's how it prints out, and it has that footnote
Oh, but you can take credit for
capability.
it.
But I'll certainly take credit for it if you like it. If not, it's Irwin's fault.
And then I just want to, you know, acknowledge Commissioner Jonas's suggestion of raising the millage to 10, but psychologically, I just, it would shy away from being at the very cap. It's one thing to be one of the highest millage cities, but it's another one to be at the cap. And if we ever need to borrow money, I like to think that we have that little capacity left to service debt. So.
Yeah, and I think, I'm not sure who made the comment, I think Barbara actually made the comment. The point's well taken that, you know, we're also potentially considering an assessment on top of the millage rate. So, again, I'm not comfortable with increasing it. Okay, any other comments?
Yeah, I do. Go ahead.
What I'm concerned was if we went any higher than this, potential people that want to move into Biscayne Park, I think it would scare them away. I mean, there's enough pressure where we are now, but I think if we go all the way up there, I think we're really sending the wrong message. And really, what's going to help us is getting some turnover of houses that people want to sell, so we get they're taxed at the current rate then, not as homesteaded rates.
Dave?
Yes.
If I can just say, there were two issues that have been raised over time as to why it's a bad idea to tax at 10 mils. One of them is an idea that it triggers some sort of attention from the state, who then considers us to be in fiscal trouble. And I inquired about that and found out it was not true. The other was the point Bob just made about intimidating people with a millage of 10. And I sort of inquired about that too and thought about it myself and realized that I don't think anybody ever wonders what the millage in a municipality is. I think when they're thinking of buying a house, they want to know what the tax bill was, but I don't think they ever really care what the millage was.
But they go hand in hand.
Right, but people don't ask,
I
well,
understand.
what's your millage? Oh, it's 10, well, that's a big problem. They just want to know what the tax bill was.
Okay. Commissioner Watts?
Well, and then they realize their mistake the first year their own tax bill comes, and they've paid, you know, so much more for the house than the previous tenants. I agree. I think that we, with the property values going up, we will have a greater revenue and income next year, and we do need more money for the reserves. But I don't see the logic of raising the millage rate at this point.
Okay, all right, so we have a motion. Any other comments? Okay, so motion by Commissioner Ross, second by Commissioner Anderson. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion passes 4-1.
Correct
Uh,
assumption.
Okay, let's move on to,
Would you vote no? Okay.
okay, item 9A, the Public Service Coordinator position.
Yeah, so at the last commission meeting, the regular commission meeting, I shared with you that the assistant to the village manager, public services director, was leaving the village for another career opportunity, and that it was my intention to underfill the position, recognizing that it was already budgeted. It's within my purview to fill the position, but I just wanted to let you know that I would be making some organizational changes, seeing this as an opportunity and underfilling it. And at the meeting, you all, some of you expressed some concerns and asked for a little more information. So I spent some time, and the memo in your backup provides some of my thought process on the position, taking it more from an assistant to the manager type position to more of a position that would serve the residents directly through it be complaints, concerns. A new resident walks in and they want to do extensive work on their house. This is someone who can just walk them through the process, be their point of contact. I did a very similar type position when I reorged in my previous job, when I reorged the entire department, creating that, we were calling it there a concierge level service, and basically it was open to everybody. It wasn't like in other cities where you have to pay an extra fee, but this is someone who took the responsibility to know that of everything that was going on at all times. And sometimes, and I've been using this example when I've been speaking to people over the last couple weeks. This is just a made-up an example, but maybe someone might get a notice of a violation from code related to the condition of their roof, not roof cleaning, but the condition of their roof. Instead of the code compliance officer having to defend that violation, it would be this person who would not only explain the violation to them, but also make sure they can navigate through the building permit process as well. I think it's human nature that if the code compliance officer is continuously defending the work that he's doing, he's going to back off, he or she will back off eventually, because we all like to avoid conflict at some point. So my idea is that this person is there to communicate directly with the residents, coordinate between the departments. And I still believe in that need, that customer service need. I've heard a lot of feedback since I've been here about not that we're providing poor customer service, but kind of going back to the millage discussion. With the taxes that we pay here, we expect a certain level of service. And we've already raised that bar with our daily work within Village Hall, and I think it's time to keep raising that bar. So with that being said, as you can imagine, and I think you heard some of that during the public comments, I've received a lot of feedback over the last couple weeks, and I've met with residents, I've met with each of you. Just by attending the Parks and Parkways Board yesterday, talking to other staff, it was pointed out to me that one of the duties that this position seems to lack is the oversight of other employees, which was something that was part of the former position. And I think that's a very valid point. Taking on that day-to-day oversight might pull me away from other day-to-day duties, and my job is that overall big picture day-to-day oversight of the village, and I need someone, as an example that was used last night at Parks and Parkways, someone who's going to run with their projects and be able to implement that by coordinating the staff and all of the departments of what needs to get done. So I think it's a very simple edit from what I've presented to you tonight, which is just adding the duty of supervision to make it a more effective position. I'm thinking, I concur with the thought of making it supervision over Public Works, Code, and the building department, because those three seem to work hand in hand throughout the day-to-day operations. I'm looking for. I'm sorry?
What about recreation?
I think recreation is a different. While recreation falls under resident services in my organizational chart, I think it's a different animal. I think that supervision is something that should be directly to me. There is an opportunity now, as you know, to fill that position. I think they have to really own what is going on here. I don't think the same talents that go into a building department, code department, and public works would necessarily have the same kind of oversight over those departments. This is a standalone operation, and there's a lot of potential here, and I don't think it's I would like to have that direct oversight over it.
Okay. Anything else from staff?
Well, this is a funny dance that we do here tonight, because ultimately this is under my purview, but this is a change. We're upon the budget season, so I'm just looking not for a vote necessarily, but some concurrence from and support from the commission that if we fill this position, that it's not going to be deleted from the budget as was suggested at the last meeting, so that we have some confidence going forward and we can attract quality candidates.
I think the function has been extremely important, both with you as manager and with your immediate predecessor, and I don't think we should lose it. it doesn't much matter to me what we call it, whether we call it, you know, the person who has that function, the assistant to the manager, or something else. The fact is that everybody who works in Village Hall is an assistant to the manager, and you assign their duties however you want. So I don't see why this position would be any different. And I think if you think we need it, I think we need it, and I think you should just fill it the same way it was full before.
Okay, Commissioner Anderson?
Yeah, since we're still gonna have Public Works, and we definitely need to have somebody to oversee Public Works. Example is, I guess what Parks and Parkway may have mentioned to you, when you want to plant something. Somebody needs to go and make sure where things are going to be planted, decide where they're going to be planted, check to make sure they're being planted correctly. And we can go through a whole scenario of what Public Works is doing. I look at it, we've always had a Public Works director. Now Public Works has been slimmed down because the sanitation section is taken out of Public Works. So maybe we don't need to have a Public Works director, maybe we need to have a Public Works manager. But that manager is also overseeing code and building department.
Yeah, I forgot to.
And it's like any other job description and other duties. So whatever those other duties may be, that from time to time, you may need that person. But we definitely need to have somebody who's the go-to person for those three departments. And I think the community is used to having somebody that was in charge of Public Works. And I think the community still would like to see somebody directly in charge and to have something to do with Public Works' name in it, because it's easier to get their heads around who that person is.
Okay. Commissioner Ross?
First, I want to congratulate and thank Caesar for being part of our Public Works team, for being the lead of that team, especially during these weeks. I know that there's been added hardship and added duties, and the people who work at Public Works have picked up those responsibilities and made sure that they satisfied the village needs. And so I want to thank you for all your work. You and the other gentleman working at Public Works, thank you very much. It's important for this hire that there is a sense of stability, because that's how you're going to attract the talent that you need for the myriads of duties that this is going to encompass. And so I today would commit to maintaining that position, because it's very necessary and it's going to help us work through all of these projects we have coming up. So you have my sort of my commitment, non-vote commitment to do it.
Okay. Yeah, I feel the same way. I think that, you know, it's not our job to micromanage, and this is within your purview. It's your staff, but at the same time, I appreciate you coming and seeking. I think it's appropriate for us to give you some guidance and our opinion, but with the changes that you just suggested, you know, making those changes and getting someone with Public Works and code experience, because I think both are the most important issues, right? Our medians are our pride and joy, and code enforcement needs help. We need to bring up property values. So getting someone that has the expertise within those two areas to assist Caesar and to assist Reggie, I think is important. So I'm in support of it as well.
Thank you.
Commissioner Watts, are you anything else?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just a couple of questions. I think that with Candido, I think everyone realized Candido did so much. I think he really did fill a need, and there's a need in, as you perceive, in the village administration. I have two questions. One is in the job description. There, okay, so yours, the public services coordinator is your job description. All right, it was just the the amount of 10 years of related experience plus 3 years in government or outreach. I was thinking of the sort of proposed salary, and I was wondering if that's commensurate with the salary. 10 full years of experience plus 3. I mean, I was thinking of if you were downsizing this position, that it might be someone younger or newer to the job with less experience might be appropriate. I just wanted to know your comments.
I'm thinking about our process here, but I think 10 years is a good time frame. We're looking for a jack of all trades. We're looking for someone who is a quick learner. So the person might come in with a strong public works background, but be very easy to adapt to code compliance and building and those type of things. And I think 10 years is a reasonable range for someone to be out of college and have some work under their belt. I really do.
Okay, because I doubted that Candido had 10 years of experience, if you discount his military service, you know, and he was a good jack of all trades. The other question I have is that in the previous job description of assistant manager, there was a big section on identifying grant funds and preparing grants, but not actually taking care of them once we get them. Where with this position, will that person have?
Yeah, I believe grants are included in the job description. It's definitely something that I'm looking for, but this is part of my, when I was conversing with a resident or two over the last week or two, I talked about that. This isn't just an isolated change that we're making here. We're kind of massaging what everyone does. No big changes, but we have a staff member who's also going to get some training in grants. An existing staff member to kind of expand her portfolio and her backup and what she does. So it's not just going to be siloed or one person, but it is part of this job description that this person manages grants, but there will be other people in Village Hall that are involved in grants, including myself.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any other comments? All right, so I think you have direction.
Can I just bring up one thing as we move on? Not to ruin the moment of support, but it's just something that just happened, and it's a little professional pet peeve of mine, and it's been a pet peeve of mine for all the years that I've been a department director or now manager. And maybe as we go into budget season, I'm very protective of my staff, and I think as I've been here for the past 7 or so months, my staff has started to sense that. I probably said it within the first week, and I think they're getting to that comfort level. As we go through the process, I would just ask that we don't refer to employees by name. It's just something I'm a little sensitive to. I think it can affect morale if we're talking about why is Susie getting a raise. Those type of things. Definitely in the context of their position, but just not by name.
Okay. All right, so let's move on.
Thank you.
All right, let's go to item 9B, a discussion regarding the roads and stormwater assessment.
Yeah, this is a discussion that came up during the sanitation discussions about, it was originally presented by staff as if we were to save money on our sanitation assessment, perhaps we could ask the residents to put that savings towards a different assessment that could improve the village. So I spoke with the village attorney, and it was determined through Florida state statute that we could do a roads and stormwater drainage improvement, and that part of the roads would include the curbing, the medians, and those type of things. So in order to establish an assessment, the state requires us to do an ordinance establishing the assessment. We need to advertise it for 4 weeks before, 4 consecutive weeks before we do the ordinance. And all of this work would need to be done by January 1st. So I thought as we're going into budget season, I think tonight's a good opportunity to get the the pulse of the commission on this and if you would like us to pursue it. If the outcome of this discussion is that you would like us to pursue an assessment, we would come back at a future meeting in the near future with a resolution authorizing staff to begin the process of the assessment, and then we would return with 2 readings of an ordinance. During the sanitation discussions, we included a proposal that showed what it would cost to do a master plan. And that we're willing to go back and massage those numbers and relook at that. And really over the next few months leading up to January 1st, our discussions are really about yes or no on an assessment, and the actual amount of the assessment would be determined just like we determined the sanitation assessment during the late spring of next year. So, so right now it's really about the pulse of the commission, whether you would like an assessment.
And just as a brief follow-up, special assessments are for special benefits to property, and they need to be fairly apportioned. And stormwater roadway assessments are like the center of what special assessments tend to be for. And the last couple of years in particular, a lot of cities have moved to a stormwater assessment and a roadway assessment. A lot of cities that I work with are looking at doing it. Some have done it. So just to give you that background.
What about medians in a unique neighborhood like this that has many more than the usual medians?
I looked at this before. I've not seen anywhere that they've had a median assessment. Can you do some landscaping and lighting as part of your roadway? Yes.
Well, I was thinking about maybe redevelopment of medians with a whole new landscape plan.
There's no, looked at this probably 6 months ago, and Commissioner, you and I talked about it, and there's been no examples of anyone doing a median, and it's not specifically referenced. Of course, you could, in a unique community, talk about the special benefit of each property, and ultimately, if we can show there's a special benefit for median improvement and that it's fairly assessed, more than likely then it'll be found to be proper. But there's no history of any city doing it that we were able to find. So it's more risky, quite frankly, because there's no history of it.
Is it up to someone to approve when you say it's risky?
Well, it's up to this commission to approve, and these are always subject to someone challenging that that's not a proper assessment. We would make our argument, which could be very good, but as long as there's a need for water and sewer and roadway, that is clearly well established and is the recommendation that the manager's making. Now, to do a median assessment, again, we'd be the first community in the state of Florida doing that. Sometimes that raises concern for people and sometimes becomes an issue that ultimately the courts decide. I'm not saying that would happen, but I like to be very careful in this community to make sure that we're not out there on a case because of the expense of it, especially if there's a solution that the manager sees.
Okay, Commissioner Anderson?
Yeah, not every home benefits from the median.
That would be an argument.
And we have a lot of homes that are not by the medians. So, you know, I think that would be, like you were pointing out, it would be a question, because why would a homeowner that doesn't benefit from median pay for an improvement to a median that another homeowner is getting?
Right, and you could do one of two things there. You could make the argument that everybody does, but again, that might be subject to a unique first impression challenge. Or secondly, you might find that isn't a benefit that all property owners have, and then you'd only assess certain property owners. That has its own unique difficulties.
Right. Do you have a comment, Commissioner Ross?
A couple of things. On that issue of the median, and sometimes we've talked about building a barrier by the railroad track, I think that there could be an argument made that those things, even though properties are not all adjacent to those enhancements, they still benefit the entire community and help elevate property values, whether you're adjacent to the improvement or not.
Right, that would be the argument.
I'm wondering with this assessment in particular, is it and I should have asked you these questions before, I apologize, but is it a one-time thing? Is it a continuing? Does it go for several years? How does that work?
Usually, the roadway improvements and stormwater are ongoing because the ongoing need to continue to improve.
Right.
But it depends on what the commission finds is the need.
So we would set, as part of the ordinance, we would set the length of time that this assessment maybe sunsets after some time or continues?
It could continue, and
It could.
I guess you could look at sunsetting it if you found reason to, yes.
And then it could always just, my understanding is if time comes and we don't need the assessment, we just repeal the ordinance.
Oh, correct.
Just like any other ordinance.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, the couple of drainage projects that we have done by matching state dollars, our match of those dollars have come either from CITT or from the general fund. So we were sort of taking away from creating a benefit somewhere else in order to create this benefit. I would like to see continuing money come from the state, and we would then have a pool of specifically assessed stormwater management funds to match those. So from my part, I think that it's something that we need to take steps towards, but we also have to engage the community and make sure that they understand the benefits that could be derived from it. And I thought you did a very good process in rolling out the sanitation and inviting workshops and all of those communications. I don't know if we have to reach that level with this, but although by operation it's going to have the public hearings and all of
Correct.
the required notice anyway.
There's a lot of notice required, and this is just the very beginning.
Right.
And looking back on my notes, just, I want to be clear about it. There's a lot of things you can do with medians that include lighting, landscaping, signage, and even some street furniture, not public art for sure. So there's some things, but you got to be careful of how you do that and whether you're including the roadways or the stormwater. And it's
Right.
all can be looked at as we move forward.
And how about what one of the speakers earlier tonight said, possibly including the pipes, the facilities that deliver our water in something like that? I know this is a multi-million-dollar project if we're going to replace our pipes. Right?
That's the key question right there. Our position and
They're not our
they're
pipes.
not our pipes, and
Right.
and they're not our pipes, and that's a good thing in many ways. But we could probably, when communication gets better, work with North Miami and maybe do an assessment for those pipes. You absolutely can do that. But they're not our pipes, and we want to be very clear about
Right.
that.
Right. Understood.
Yeah.
Understood. I suspect that when you do a project of that magnitude, we might then also be obligated to do water out and install install collection system as well.
That's a good point, yeah.
Mayor, can I address something Commissioner Ross, or Vice Mayor Ross said? If you'll recall, and this is just to share with everyone, if you recall when we were in Tallahassee, when we were looking for stormwater, for money to do a stormwater study while we were there, one of the challenges is the state does not want to give us money for the study. So, you know, I just didn't want the public to be misled by that we could just keep doing our matching funds and going to the state for money. I don't think we will qualify for much money until we have that study done, which could be funded through an assessment.
That's true, and that's part of the message that we need to get out to the community.
Heidi, regarding the study, you were saying that you thought the numbers maybe needed to be massaged. I would say we're not looking for a massage, we're looking for major surgery. It
Duly
was a
noted.
very high number.
Duly noted.
Yeah, and I'm in agreement. I mean, I think that we should take this next step and go forward and have a conversation with the community. But I'm uncomfortable with the amount of the study, whether we need a full study. I think Gary had mentioned at some point that, you know, a lot of times if you don't have the ability to make all the repairs at once pursuant to the study becomes outdated, and it just doesn't work. I don't think so. We need to have that conversation. So, but I would like to go forward with the next step of the process and really have the discussion then.
Yeah, I concur with that, because I think we have some pressing issues that we need to address with the drainage, like cleaning them, maintaining them. Maybe down the road, if it's beneficial to spend the money for the study, we can look at that. But at the beginning, we need to at least get something started.
And if we ultimately adopt the assessment, it could be it doesn't need to be used for a study. I mean, if we have a project on 113th Street that needs to be done, then we can use those funds for that project.
Well, it would be village-wide, because you're assessing it village-wide. And of course, the village uses all the streets, but
Yeah.
you wanted more than just that site-specific. You're looking at a fairly proportionate assessment for your streets.
But isn't the assessment based on real numbers and not?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean,
No, but do you understand what I'm saying? I mean,
Okay.
we establish a fund for our collective streets, and we choose, project number one is to repair a street that needs it immediately, and next year we repair another segment of the street. I mean, that's acceptable.
well, right, and the devils are in the details, though, of there needs to be this study of what the cost is and the fair apportionment. And usually it's done in ERUs, like in our case, which would be equivalent residential units.
The assessment is based on real hard numbers in a sense of what you're going to use the assessment for. And I'll use sanitation since we're familiar with sanitation as an example. We can't set an assessment that we don't have a budget to back it up with. We can't just say we're going to charge everyone $500 and not show $500 of hard cost. So you do need, whether it's not a big study or not, but you need to have your project list done for the assessment.
Yeah, I agree. I think not only does that, I agree that the study, as was quoted in the papers we've been looking at before, it seemed very pricey. But I'll tell you what, it has astounded me since sitting on this side of the table how expensive it is to do government, to do a project, and for any city to do a project. And it's not the same as, remodeling your home. It may have some of the same elements, but cities have to go through certain processes, and that adds costs to everything that we do. Without the study, it could be easy, or it might be easier for someone to say, I'm not being taxed fairly.
Sure.
So, we got to look at these global pictures too, and yes, negotiate the best price for it, but having the study, then we can prioritize what the work is going to be. The study itself benefits everyone, and it makes it, it supports the assessment.
You absolutely need a study.
Mayor?
Yeah.
This, like you mentioned, this is something that I think we're going to need to have a lot more discussion on. That I think we've sort of let staff know that something needs to be done, and maybe they can supply us with more information, and whether it'd be regular commission meeting or at a special meeting to really get into it. So
Can you outline just the steps quickly, what we do tonight, and then what is the next step?
We would need an enabling resolution which directs staff to begin the process of the assessment.
That's tonight? No, I'm sorry, the
No.
next
No, this
meeting.
is just getting your direction to do
Right.
that, correct?
Okay, so tonight is to authorize you to prepare that resolution.
Right.
Yes.
And we have a hearing on that resolution.
And then at some point, we would come back for 2 readings
Of
of
an
an
ordinance.
ordinance. And
Right.
we can definitely time that out so that there's public engagement, maybe before the first reading of the ordinance. Ultimately, the deadline, so that we can do this assessment for October 1st, 2015, would be, our deadline is January 1st, 2015. That the ordinance would have to be done with 2 readings.
So this, before we got quite that point, I mean, we need to know, whether it's going to be for the study, or, in other words, we need to discuss exactly what we're looking at
And that discussion can happen
later.
Right.
at the hearing that or at the meeting that we discuss the resolution, authorizing.
Well, the resolution authorizing, then it will come back with a company, that we're going to engage for the study, you can also determine at any point on the process if you think it's too expensive or
So-
not desirable.
So
But-
I'll make a motion that we authorize staff to go ahead and take the next step and prepare the resolution, and we'll continue the conversation at a future meeting.
Second.
Yeah.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Ross, second by Commissioner Jonas. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I have just one question.
Sure.
This would be actually on the property tax bill, like our
Correct.
sanitation would be?
Right.
Right.
Yes.
So if this,
Sent out by the county
so
on
if
your
this
property
goes
tax bill.
through, it won't appear on a person's tax bill until next year's tax bill.
10, 150.
Yeah.
I just would like one little bit of clarification. Given the discussion, will it's the ordinance specify roads, water drainage, and medians, or just be?
Well, I guess, you know,
Depends upon the scope of this, or the results of the study, correct?
well, we also have to give them direction on the study. Right now, I think it's being proposed as a road and stormwater assessment.
Right, and then I think the concern is the legality of the medians being included.
Yeah.
Right, I mean, it's also, you're going from 0 to 100 real quick, you know, so you may want to, you can always increase your scope or your assessment.
Yeah.
I think we just want to start moving forward.
No, my thought was, I don't think that as much as I would love us to do something with medians and put pour money into them, I think that we've got enough problems with the roads and drainage that should come first. And so.
Yeah.
And that's what the
Better to
request was.
And Mayor, just to clarify, the study will not be done until after October 1st, 2015. The study will be funded through the assessment.
Okay. All right, any other comments?
Baby steps.
Right.
It's baby steps, yeah.
Okay, so let's move on to item 9C, discussion regarding the Village Hall Annex Ad Hoc Committee. Commissioner Anderson, this was your
Yeah,
item.
I put that on there because I think whatever the process that our manager's going to have, I think there ought to be some kind of a system that we get feedback of what's going on. And I would like to see whatever the process is, to have it open enough that if a resident wants to sit in and listen and hear how the process is going through and things are being formulated.
Okay, I think staff has a presentation on this.
Just some quick discussion to have with the commission. As you know, or as you may know, I spent time in my career doing capital projects management for a previous employer. And so looking at this process, I went back and I put together a schedule. This is a very broad overview schedule for the commission to see. And this is very similar to what we did when I was with the tribe. And I think you can liken the tribe to the village in many ways. Residential, involved constituency, a sense of ownership about the entire reservation or the village. I mean, there's a lot of similarities between these two places. And so this schedule kind of mimics what I see as our project schedule. It doesn't have every detail or every task that needs to be done, but it's broad. And I color-coded it. So if you see it in orange, this is something that staff will do. Is it a specific staff member? I can't tell you right now. If it's a contract, our village attorney is going to be doing it. If it's, but it's general staff. In pink represents when we will have community meetings. These are important benchmarks throughout the process, and this includes very early on a community meeting to choose the baseline for an exterior architectural style. We have some ideas of how we would engage with the community at a meeting, allow those in attendance to vote on what style of architecture, of course, within of what we would present that we see as appropriate for the village, and for them to be engaged in that decision-making process. That would be followed by us presenting the proposed RFP and the general style, as well as the location, to the commission. So it's again another opportunity for the public to be involved, because it would be at a commission meeting. We would then take it back, and staff would facilitate it through the RFP process. We would come back to the commission for the approval of the contract, and then staff would facilitate it with the selected design team to through the design. But as you can see, I put in there in pink, again representing the community. It can include an informal working group of interested residents. If there's residents who want to be involved, they're more than happy to attend our meetings with the design team. But ultimately, once we're through a preliminary design, it is my plan, if you see at the bottom of the first page of the chart, to have a community meeting to review the preliminary site and building design. We'll go back with the design team, take the feedback from the community, work on the plan a little more, and then do a presentation to the village commission of the final design. Again, a public meeting and an opportunity for the public to be engaged. That would lead to the construction. And then at some point during the construction process, have a community meeting specific to the restoration of the log cabin. The way we envision this happening is the annex would have to go first. Because of the extensive work that needs to be done in the log cabin, we need somewhere to move in order for that work to take place. And I'm going to go back to that timeline. And then also a presentation to the village commission on the log cabin restoration. Again, an opportunity for the public to be heard. And then we go right again into doing the actual work, and then of the RFP process for the restoration contractor. That contract would be awarded by the city commission at a public meeting, do the restoration work, and then finally I included a community celebration of the building. Regarding the timeline, we are under the gun. I've been speaking to the state today. We essentially have until June 30th to expend the funds, the $1 million that we've been celebrating. If we're going through the project, they have the ability to encumber the funds that we haven't used so far to September 2015. But really, the end of the project is June 30th, 2015. So this schedule mimics that timeline. The silver lining of that tight timeline also works out with our space constraints issues, and that's that for the $50,000 matching grant that we have from the Division of Historical Resources for the restoration of log cabin, which will augment this $1 million project by our $50,000 match to their $50,000 grant. We have until June 2016 to spend that money. So we can go over that either June or September 2015 deadline with the log cabin work if the work includes that last $100,000 worth of work. It's going to be a ballet, it's going to be an orchestra, I mean, really to get this going. But I think what we're presenting gives a lot of opportunity for those who want to be involved at the highest level of details to be involved, and those who are just curious about what's going on to also have their curiosity met. I see staff's role as facilitating this process and just making sure that we stay on target with all of our dates. Once we engage a design firm, probably most likely at this point because of the time frame, a design build firm, we're going to have some faith in them and our relationship with them, because ultimately they will be driving the design as well with the input that they get from the residents and staff.
I just had, I'd like time to look at this in more detail, but right off the bat, I think that to draft the RFP, you're going to need some ideas to the design or the layout or of what, correct? Like I think a floor plan or something, correct?
Correct.
So, and I know you indicated here that we're using the Village Hall Computer Learning Center plans as a sort of a starting point. But I think that this, whether it's an ad hoc committee or whether it's a full committee, I think that they should be involved at that initial stage as well, just to give input to you and to work together to make sure that whatever's going into the RFP makes sense from because we can, and obviously, you know what you need in the way of space and floor plans, but I think we can use the expertise of some people in the village, some residents that can assist you.
We're going to need technical assistance from those residents
Right.
in order to put the RFP out, and that's our intention to use that,
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I think to help keep the process going a little bit smoother, I think what the manager was saying, not really have a committee, but concerned residents to go ahead and work with the staff. But I agree, you know, we have some concerned residents that actually have the credentials to really help staff. And the only thing what I would like to see is anytime we're doing that, if we could have it maybe posted, so if somebody wants to listen, obviously the manager would take input or work with whomever she chooses from. But if somebody else wants to be there to see how the process is running, they can.
If I may, right here, we got to be careful what we're deciding to do, because if we're going to have an ad hoc committee, and we're going to have an official ad hoc advisory
Right,
committee,
so,
that's subject to the Sunshine Law, even if it's advising just the city manager. So with this timeline, those would have to be posted, and that, just your lawyer, but that obviously going to slow it down. If it's just the manager reaching out to the community as she sees fit, not in a committee and not in a group setting, then obviously there's no need for the posting and the requirement of the time. But if it's a committee that's advising the manager, that's a sunshine committee, even though it's ad hoc.
And I know that's a problem once you get in with the committee, because we're under a tight time constraints. Now you have a quorum, and you get into those other issues. I really believe just have the manager reach out to the community.
Individuals, and as she sees fit. That,
right.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think there's
What about the issue
enough.
of posting the meeting? Does that
Well,
put us in?
if you're reaching out to individuals, then you normally wouldn't post a meeting because it's not sunshine.
Right, but if somebody hears that this meeting is going on and would like to just not be part of, because they weren't invited by the manager, but like to just to sit and hear what's going on.
I think the process is they just say, I'm interested in coming to the meeting, and they come. Because if we post it, we're teetering on that sunshine issue.
Well, I don't, I
Yeah.
want to stay away from that.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure, you know. Well, that's why I don't want to get into, if we post it, then we're getting into it's actually an ad hoc committee, then we have
Yeah.
all this stuff.
If you're going to
we
meet
don't.
with a group of individuals, you being in this case the manager, and they're going to give advice to her, that's an advisory group that is subject to sunshine. So at this timeline, that would be, to me, an impossibility to do this timeline with a sunshine ad hoc committee.
So it'd be, the manager would just to reach out, and they have their meeting then. That's to get around so we don't hamstring this project then.
That's how I see it. I don't know how the
All right,
manager
let's-
sees it, but.
John, could
Let's
we
hear from
do
other-
like an email, I'm sorry, Mayor.
No, go
I'm
ahead.
just thinking out loud. Could we do an email blast, like calling all architects or something, and, you know, so it's beyond the handful of architects that have been identified to me by the commission, and kind of put that call out for them to contact the manager, and so, or all interested people who want to be. Can we do that, or is that?
Well, you
pushing
could, but if
towards
you're saying
sunshine?
all interested architects, please show up at 4 o'clock, then you have a committee.
So
But if
all-
you're just, would like to sit down individually with whoever's interested and has the skill, then that's not a committee. And so, you know, unfortunately, as we know, or fortunately, depending where you are, we're the most open government in the country, and it doesn't always make for fast government. It's just a question of whether you want to proceed as an ad hoc committee, or otherwise the manager can meet individually. But once she meets with 2 or more and gets advice, that's an advisory committee. And the problem is, if you don't post it, you've had a meeting, you haven't noticed it, you haven't taken minutes, and it wasn't open to the public.
Now, let's just say the manager reaches out to 2 or 3 architects. So then it would have to be posted.
Correct.
So it's posted, but that's a one-time meeting. So the minutes are taken, so you're not worried about a quorum, because that's just a one-time meeting, because this is not an ongoing 2 people, 3 people.
That would be extra safe to do that, correct? And
so if the manager wanted to listen to, like I say, more than one architect, they could like just post it, have those 3 architects come, minutes taken.
you could do a calling all architects and have a meeting here if you wanted to. I mean,
Yeah,
there's so
that's what I
many ways
mean.
to do it, yeah.
That's what I'm saying. What I'm trying to do is to figure out a way that's not going to go ahead and
Correct.
tie the manager's hands, but she can go ahead and at least utilize the resources of the citizens here that can
Mhm.
help.
All right, let's hear some more comments. Commissioner Ross.
I think we have a lot of talent in the village, technical and professional, and if people have the time to share with the village and give of themselves in that way, then definitely we should tap into all of that, because we'll need to stretch these $1 million. It sounds like a lot, but it's, you know, it's going to get eaten up very quickly. And as well as time getting eaten up very quickly. I went back and looked at Heidi's resume when she came as a candidate for village manager, and she's got a lot of experience in this background. Part of her resume says that she oversaw planning and development of tribal housing and service buildings, and maintained and managed a nearly $500 million capital budget. You know, this one small building that we're putting up. I think that with that background, Heidi probably could run it, but she doesn't have a lot of the, you know, the architectural and those kind of skill sets. I would recommend that we stay away from ad hoc committee. I can't be supportive of that because it'll just slow us down. We already have what is sort of a footprint with the plans and the money that was put into buying those plans. So there's something to work with already. I don't see a lot of other elements that are involved here. And I trust the manager to reach out to the people who know of it. We've had this discussion at several commission meetings, so there are people in the community that know what we're trying to accomplish, and we welcome them today to please contact the manager if you think that you have a skill set that can help her through this process. Unfortunately, for you, Heidi, and for your time, I feel that it's better if you meet with people one-on-one and gather whatever resources you can that way. But going with a committee and having to post notices and having to keep minutes, and it will delay what we need to accomplish in a short period of time.
And there's enough, again, we'll review this more carefully, but I think as long as the public knows that this is the process we're following and these are the opportunities for the public to participate, then I think that's a positive thing, and that's what we should do. But I'm concerned about the time as well. And I think we can accomplish the same thing, getting the input from residents that want to give input. I think we can accomplish that without forming a formal committee. Of course, if you're open to have an open door policy and they can call you and meet with you. So I tend to agree with Commissioner Ross. Commissioner Watts?
I don't necessarily back the idea of an ad hoc committee, but I do think that this is a very important event in the history of Biscayne Park. We only want, on occasion, we probably won't be able to build another building in our lifetimes. And I think that the residents should not feel excluded from the process at all. And I think that we do need, maybe just in the wording here, workshops so that we could call in all architects and everyone who's interested to has something to say or an idea, an attitude. I think that we really should embrace that kind of communication with the village and all people, all those who are interested in it or who are qualified to give advice. So I don't see necessarily a committee, but I think a couple of workshops when where people you can discuss the idea, designs presented, and people can give their feedback. I think that's what's necessary, and that it should be advertised. I mean, a workshop doesn't hurt the sunshine laws, or I mean,
You would advertise it.
Yeah, and that doesn't make it a committee. It's just those residents,
it doesn't make it a committee.
including the architects. What if because we happen to know 4 architects and we contact each architect separately? What about the half a dozen other architects that we don't know about in the park who may have been interested? So I just don't think that we should cut ourselves off from full
Shout out
participation.
to all architects in Biscayne Park.
Call me.
Call Heidi Shaffron at Village Hall, 305-899-8000. This roadmap you've given us is really helps me visualize how we're going to progress through the project. And there are 2, 4, 6, I think at least 8 opportunities where there would be a meeting here, whether it's a workshop or a commission meeting to discuss the project. So I think that 8 opportunities for people to come in and give feedback is ample.
Yeah, no, I think that's important, but I just want to make sure that there's a meeting for the community to give their input before, because, having a meeting at the last stage with, when the RFP is already going out, the description is already, and I see that here, and that's, I just want to make sure that at that community meeting, we could receive input as to the design, everything, location, architecture.
Prior to that meeting, one of the things I'm going to need to identify within the village is an architect who's willing to trace the PDF files we have of the previous building into CAD. I mean, we're looking for some pro bono work here as well, not just opinions are welcomed and feedback is welcome, but we're also looking for some pro bono work, because without that pro bono work, we can't get the RFP out without us expending funds that we don't have right now. So that's really important.
And I'm looking, you're looking at 3 weeks to get that RFP out. Am I correct?
No. The RFP would not go out
6 weeks
until week 6. And
I see it down there.
these weeks are kind of loosey-goosey. This is, best case scenario.
So-
Day 1, it might be a week from now.
So really what we're looking at is 3 weeks, so you can go ahead and sort of get your head wrapped around sort of what the RFP might be. And then we're having a community meeting.
Correct.
So, and it's still, like I say, in those 3 weeks, if you so choose, you could be reaching out and maybe meet one-on-one with whomever.
Correct. Absolutely. And the RFP will not go out until not just after the community meeting, but after we present it to the village commission.
Right. I mean, I would love to be able to have it wide open to the public, but it's not going to work. So I think the best scenario is just, we've been advised by our attorney, the best scenario is leave it in your hands.
No, but it is going to be wide open to the public.
Well, it's wide, I'm talking about there's pieces of it. I mean, you have the community meetings, but what I'm saying is the whole process can't be open to the public, because then it is considered as a committee. So there's sections, but there's the sections down there which will let anybody who wants to go and hear, because we have community meetings, like on week 4.
Yeah, and I don't see this. I don't see this as unusual. This process that you put forward. I think
It worked really well in the tribal community. We constantly were updating the tribal council or the community throughout the process.
Okay.
Okay, I have one question related. All right. How much money do you think you would like to allocate for the, or you think will be allocated towards the preservation of the log cabin, restoration, and then to the new building? Or has the state specified anything?
The state has not specified yet.
Mhm.
I think they're gonna be looking to us to kind of give that number. I'm thinking that it's because of, it's not just building a building, it's also utilities and site work.
Yeah.
The new building is probably about, and I said this at the last meeting, the 75, whereas the restoration project that we would take on is probably the 25%, plus the extra 100 from the state grant, which would make it about 350,000. And we're looking at a major restoration. And you'll have, our plan is to have our historic consultant at the next commission meeting. And I know I've shared some of this with you all in individual meetings, as you've asked. The major work is gonna be the roof, the removal of the addition where my office is, and finding some ADA accessibility for a bathroom. And the roof the roof in the addition includes electrical and telephone wiring.
Do we actually have to have, that's a historic building, does it have to be ADA compliant, since right on the other side of the road you're going to have ADA compliant bathrooms?
We could do a workaround because it's a historic building that would just add, the design would then, at the annex, you would want to have a bathroom that had outdoor accessibility. So if there's a meeting at Village Hall, you could go and just use that bathroom. But then it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, and this is one of the things we'll figure out during the design process. Well, then you have to have a perfect ADA path from the ADA accessibility of the log cabin back to that bathroom, so there's no clear answer yet.
Yeah, no,
yeah.
Because that can affect sometimes grant proposals, because lots of grants for cultural affairs and things really want ADA accessible features in the building that something will be held in. And I just wanted to mention one thing. I worry about the money for the log cabin, because it sort of reminds me of this old house. You know, it's a money pit, and when you have to restore something old, its cost can just skyrocket. And I'm fearing, I hope not, I'm fearing that that might be the case with the log cabin. So I want us to be sure that we've got, funds to do the job properly. And in that, just in respect to that, I'm just going to mention this another time. I mentioned one to you. But we could be eligible for up to $30,000 matching grant from the Miami-Dade Department of Cultural Affairs. Because now we are eligible, because we had a grant a year ago, a community development grant, we're now eligible to apply for capital improvement grants. And their capital improvement grants are up to $30,000, and they have to be their matching grants, but we can use the $1 million grant or the $100,000 grant as the match for it. And one of the specifications that they have on that grant is asking for, they're really interested in making buildings ADA, making them compliant. So that one, and then also, because we've got money, I think we should try for everything to get all the money we need. If the costs are estimated to be, great, there's also the Villagers Grant in Coral Gables, and it's a group specifically whose purpose is to restore old buildings in Miami-Dade County. So I hope that you might remember to look into those.
Have you circulated the Heisenbottle report?
No, it's still in draft format, and I was just going to mention something. We've received comments back. I have it in my office, but it's not complete, and we actually received 5 to 6 comments back from the state on some deficiencies in the report. I think we received that yesterday. I've been talking to Heisenbottle today. And and this is to answer Commissioner Watts' original question, one of the deficiencies as identified by the state is they're looking for a budget. So that's going to be very helpful to us, and he needs to have it done within the next week, I believe. So that's going to help us back into what money we need for the annex.
Okay. Commissioner Russell?
I have a question of, the $1 million is not a grant, it's an appropriation.
Right.
So that's the language. It's not just a language thing, I think that's treated differently. But my question was not on that. My question was on the 100,000, on the 100,000 matching grant, the 50-50. That's
funded in year 15, 16?
What we've done is we've budgeted 25,000 in year 14, 15.
Right.
And it's because we anticipate doing the work probably in the June, July, August timeframe, and then expect to ask to fund the remaining 25,000 in the 15, 16 year.
But my question was really more on the state side. Has that preservation grant been funded, gone hard on funding from the state?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So there's
Oh,
no
yes.
chance that it's going to be pulled back?
No, no, we've received, it's funny, we're dealing with the same employee in Tallahassee and Department of Historical Resources daily almost on closing up the study grant and ramping up for this. It was funded by the legislator as part
Okay.
of the Department of Historical Resources.
So there's no risk that we, count on that money and it gets pulled back?
And
That won't happen?
correct, and the 50,000 is the 50,000. It does not become an issue during the next legislative session.
Good
For
news.
capital projects, they allow 2 years, and they get to encumber the funds.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. All right, let's move on to announcements.
Would you like a quick update on the recycling cart
Sure.
supplies?
Yep.
To date, we've received 44% of our responses back. I believe, Maria, you told me we have a 32% voting turnout, generally, 32%. And then we went to another city that did a similar survey to find out for their size of their recycling carts, and they received 28%. So we're very happy with the 44%, but like I said, we're always raising the bar in Village Hall. So we sent out another mailing just to those who did not respond this week. And we've given them until the 21st to respond back to us with their cards. So we have a good sense of what we need to order, but we want to give people more opportunities to respond. So everyone you speak to, while you're walking your dogs, taking your garbage out, shopping at Publix, ask them if they did their response, because that's what we're doing in Village Hall. If someone calls to ask for a building permit, before that, did you fill out your form? So,
Heidi?
yes.
Heidi, I think you got 100% response because there was a default.
Correct.
And it's very possible that anybody would have said, I'm not going to send this in, that's my response.
And then they would have 65-gallon
Right, but
curbside.
my
We
point
understand
is,
that,
you
yeah.
heard from them, they didn't send in the card, and they understood what that meant because it says on the card.
Correct.
Are these notices going to the property address or to the actual title holder?
Very good question. For this second mailing, we are sending them to the property address because a lot of the responses we did not receive are from people outside of the country, outside of South Florida. I want to say about 140, 170. What was the number? Yeah, yeah, we counted them. So
Okay.
we're going to have them we're sending it to the property address. And if they check the one that requires the waiver of liability, we will then, through them, work to get the the property owner to sign off. But, yeah, we're trying to.
On that waiver of the liability, I reached out to our attorney for clarification.
We have a phone call, into Waste Pro to see if they'll tweak that language for us.
Okay, because a couple of residents, they were really concerned on that waiver of liability. That means that Waste Pro can come in there and do whatever, and they can't be held liable. And they're concerned about that because they would rather go ahead and have side yard pickup, but they're afraid that if they just, by doing it, Waste Pro employees can go in there and break sprinklers, trip over, do whatever, and they can't be held liable. So
Defer
it's a
to the
concern.
attorney on that one, yeah.
We didn't, as you know, we didn't draft it. That was their draft of what they required.
Right.
If they'll change it, we're more than happy to work
Well,
on
it's just clarification, so at least everybody would know what liability means.
All right, anything else?
I have a question for the village attorney. Do you have any update on the police investigation?
Yes, Jesse Scott, I talked to today. He actually has a witness that's coming in tomorrow. He has basically had thing finalized, but he wants to wait to see if this one witness comes in tomorrow for the due process for the individuals involved. As you know, Jesse Scott's 20-plus years officer, and it's a very thorough report, as he's informed me, of dozens of pages, so we're looking forward to getting it. He's waiting on one witness that he thought was important enough to wait a couple days for, and we're moving forward.
So we should have it likely by next week?
Don't miss it, every time we
Sure.
call the date.
Right, I mean, Jesse, when you have an independent investigator, the independent part is we couldn't investigate this in-house. We had to do it outside, and he is, we've been talking to him, and he was moving forward, and we expected something in the last couple of days, and he's waiting for this one witness that's supposed to come in tomorrow.
Could we do something, because, we're obviously, we're all getting pressure from the community.
Well, the community needs to understand that there's due process rights.
Correct.
Saw an email today that was more than inaccurate, and was not received well by the state attorney's office. So there are other agencies out there that we had to wait on.
Right.
That Jesse had to wait on, I should say. It is imminent.
Well, if it doesn't seem like we're going to have it next week, could we get something just sent out saying, oh, it's going to be another week?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
In other words, so it's just
I've been
something
assured by
that
Mr. Scott that this is the last witness.
anything
And
can happen.
if it's not next,
yeah.
if we don't have it, if we know we're not having it by early next week, I'll be happy to send something out.
Yeah, just letting us know that.
Sure.
We're equally as anxious or frustrated, whatever words you'd like to use. We are.
Yeah.
Okay, announcements?
Just Monday, July 21st is the Planning and Zoning Board at 6:30 p.m. On Tuesday, July 22nd is the Recreation Advisory Board at 7 p.m. And our next regular commission meeting is Tuesday, August 5th at 7 p.m.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you.